feel when your numbers go up and they hear you. They start following your message cause they feel you. Haters in the rear view wanna ruin plans. Don't be startled, they just low-key fans. They tight like bands on the fresh stack. Knowing Rolo runs the city, bringing hip-hop back for the 51st year with my loquacious bands. Now this ain't no love.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host Rolo, and I'm glad to be back here with you for another episode of Rolo Runs the City podcast. And of course, we have our particulars, and that is going to be our socials. Of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Rolo Runs the City podcast, also at Rolo Runs the City music, and you could also check me out on X at Rolo Runs the City, and not to mention anything that in all things Rolo. Feel free to come and check me out on RoloRunsTheCity.com. And if you're streaming me on any of the platforms, feel free to check out my YouTube. I have several different things there, music videos, obviously the podcast, shorts, things of that nature. All things Rolo. You could definitely check me out there. But anyway, without further ado, I want to get started with the show. And of course, this is something here that is very personal, of course, because we all battle our demons and we all go through the things that we go through. But the thing that is most important is to recognize that there is a problem and overcome that problem. So every man wants to rule the world but can't even control themselves. The reason why I say that, man, is because you have many people out here who want to take on the world and just do everything that they can within their power to have as much control as they can. However, when it comes to themselves, they let themselves go. So it's actually counterintuitive, but, you know, it is what it is. Can't hate on it. Just got to improve it. End of story. You guys already know. And that is the podcast. No, I'm just playing with you guys. I'm not going a minute in and then doing that. But of course, you know, you got to understand, before you lead others, you got to be able to conquer the enemy within, man. And there are many times where you have folks that, and I know I'm a victim of this myself, right? Like, I think to myself all the time, like, man, I worked hard today. You know, I can kind of ease up tomorrow. And many people have that mindset, and that's including me, you know. But I always think to myself all the time, and it's funny too, it's something that I say, but it's very literal, man. I mean, evil doesn't take a day off, so neither should you. Evil goes as hard as it can, so should you. So with that being said, evil does not let up. So if you're the opposition of evil, my recommendation to you is go as hard as evil does. You know, I'm not saying do what evil does, but go as hard as evil does. In other words, evil's not taking the day off, and neither should you. But I titled this podcast called "The Man in the Mirror is the First War," and the reason why I named that specific topic is because we have so many demons that we have to battle within. It's not the easiest of things to try to get through in life when we're trying to develop self-mastery. It's funny because I was speaking about this the other day. We all know what needs to get done. Like, let's just be honest, right? Let's talk about good human being sense, right? You know, keeping your morals intact, not letting your morals be sacrificed by monetary gain, right? Keeping your body right. You know that at least a minimum a day, you should be getting 30 minutes of exercise. You should be moving your body and doing the best that you can to optimize your body. But if you don't have an hour or 2 hours to spare, which I believe we all do, there's just a lot of mismanagement of time. But dedicate at least a half an hour to your body every day. Get it moving, build up some sweat, you know, make sure that your muscles are still working. Gravity is the enemy. And the reason why I say gravity is the enemy, Because what does gravity do to us over time? Things start to fall, things hang a little bit more, extra skin, back starts to hunch over a little bit, things of that nature. So gravity is the ultimate enemy. Make sure that you're fighting against it daily. But we know that we need to do that. At least a minimum of half an hour a day getting some good exercise work. Okay? We know in reference to our diets. In our diets, we need to ease up on those carbs that spike our blood sugar. Don't choke on a Pop-Tart. You know what I mean? Eat good carbohydrates in reference to, vegetables, leafy greens, things of that nature. An uptick on the protein. They recommend, I think, anywhere from like 3/4 to actually a gram of protein per pound that your body has, or the weight that you want your body to have, right? We know this. Stay properly hydrated. At least drink half of your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 128 pounds, you should be drinking 64 ounces of water, right? I don't know if it's simple math. I don't know if that's correct. You guys can fact check me on that, but I'm just trying to give you guys an example. But we know that hydration is key. Making sure that you're not flushing out all your electrolytes, things of that nature. Okay, I know it sounds like I'm rambling on about simple things. However, simple things are not getting done, right? So we talked about your morals, we talked about your physicality. Doing what you can to stay financially well, so then that way, if anything catastrophic is to occur, you do what you can to, be able to, ride the tide. You know what I mean? So, like I said, none of us are perfect. I damn sure am not. But striving to become my better self every day, just 1% better, is a lot better than staying stagnant. I mean, nobody likes still water. Still water brings mosquitoes, and they will bite you up. And I'm not trying to do that. But anyway, you definitely want to have, that aspect of yourself going. You want to make sure that, your spirituality is intact. If, you believe in God, Buddha, Allah, the universe, whatever, at least believe in something bigger than yourself. Because at the end of the day, if, like I say all the time, if we all went to space and we seen how small this world is, imagine what we look like. So that's the reason why that our family mission that I talked about on the last episode is about being in consistent service, because at the end of the day, this life is not about you. With you becoming a person who serves and tries to enhance themselves, so then that way they can serve better. I mean, it's just a byproduct of progressing and moving forward. So anyway, it helps humanity. But if you can't defeat your own BS, right, you won't defeat the opposition. So that's the reason why I talk about those simple things, right? Like, dude, like, I get it. You're at a company function or whatever, and they brought donuts, and they've got cookies, and they're diving in on whatever they're drinking now, what Minute Maid, Hawaiian Punch, whatever, man. I don't know. But my thing is, dude, put the donut down. You don't need the donut. Drink some water. Eat something that's a little bit more suitable for you, especially if you don't like what you're looking at in the mirror. You know what I mean? And that could be in a physical standpoint. Maybe it's probably why you're picking up that donut. You're picking it up because it's something that's kind of autopilot for you, and you're not thinking like, damn, this old-fashioned donut here is 310 calories, has 32 grams of carbohydrates, and this is not going to be good for me if I eat about 3 or 4 of these, because in that case you'll be, like I said, you're going to be consuming about 900 or 1200 calories. You know what I mean? On just like 3 or 4 donuts. And you could have ate a fulfilling meal with less calories in that, more, protein dense, than, obviously something that's going to optimize your health as opposed to spiking your blood sugar and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. This sounds like a health episode. But in actuality, like I said, man, health is wealth, man. And if you don't conquer that war, that man in the mirror, then you'll get, devoured by your own vices. It is what it is. Anywho, the mirror doesn't lie, so don't lie to yourself. Don't say to yourself, "Oh, it's okay. I'm in great shape." Round. You know what I'm saying? So, that's not really the shape that you want to be, because you can BS yourself all day long. But truth of the matter is, that if you were able to choose a better life and the life that you're living, and the life that you're living is really not what you've strived for as a kid, then, don't lie to yourself, man. You know what I'm saying? Just be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. Nobody said it was easy, but it's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. So don't get the language confused. Simple and easy are not the same thing. Something can be easy to get done. Something can be simple, but it may not be easy. So sometimes simple, you have to just work extremely hard. It's a simple process. However, it's not complex, right? However, but, you can get hurt in the process if you're not trying to get things done correctly. So, let's do the best that we can to keep it simple. Not easy, but like I said, simple works. The man has three versions of himself: who he is, who he wants to be, and who he pretends to be. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because you got too many people, especially nowadays with the internet. Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's got, some sort of a way to get a message out. And they have this fake it till they make it mentality. There's too many fake it till you make it folks out there. You know what I mean? There's too many Instagram experts. Dude, I heard some crazy stuff on Instagram the other day. Dude was like, yeah, you don't need to go ahead and drink water. Your body's made up of 70% water. Dude, you know what? And this guy, Instagram Instagram experts kill me, man. Talking about you don't need to drink water because your body's made up of 70% water. Well, say that to your liver when it's being overworked. And your body's depleted and you're dehydrated. Like, that's one thing's for sure. Like, people don't understand that, like, diabetes for sure is a dehydrative disease. And you have to think about it, right? I mean, I'm a type 1 diabetic, right? And if I'm not staying on top of my blood sugar, if I'm not being properly hydrated, if I'm eating a boatload of, carbs that are going to simply just spike my blood sugar, and I'm not monitoring anything. First thing that's happening to me is I'm looking like Jim Carrey from Me, Myself, and Irene, getting cotton mouth, looking all jacked up, because I'm like, where's the water? Like, so I just thought it was funny when I seen that. I was like, dude, some people out there, you have to be careful where you get your information. If you don't want to get your information from me, that's cool. Feel free to look stuff up. I mean, you guys have Google, a whole bunch of searching. Feel free to check out your search engines and debunk anything that anybody's saying. Definitely don't believe everything you hear. Be skeptical of everything. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So anyway, it is what it is, right? But anywho, moving on. The mirror reveals what people don't want to see, right? Like, for example, right? You could lie to yourself all day long, be a legend in your own mind. Feel free to do so. But once you look in that mirror and it reveals what you don't want to see, it's because it's the truth. The truth, that's why they don't call it, hey, it's the pretty truth. No, the truth is ugly. You know what I mean? And there's many people who don't like what they see in the mirror. And I'm not saying that I don't blame them, right? But, like, it is what it is, man. Like, things happen, right? There's a lot of folks out there, they don't understand. They don't like what they see But what they don't understand is they can change so much. They may not like the ego, but this ego has taken them over. Ego could take you only but so far, but there's no growth in ego. That's why I say it can only take you but so far. So you have to really take inventory of what is propelling you and what is actually keeping you resistant from where you want to go, and you know, and keep ascending, right? Then you've got fear, right? You know, people are consistently in their comfort zone because they're scared to step out. You know, uncertainty, the unknown is very scary to many. So what keeps people from stepping out to becoming their true authentic selves is the fact of they're scared of being subjected to the court of public opinion. Like every, you know, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, right? So you can't really be weary of living out your dreams and doing what you want to do because you're basing yourself on somebody else's opinion who's not doing anything that you are doing. So you want to make sure that, you know, don't let fear be a factor. And I'm not dropping a show name that just happened to happen, right? Shout out to Joe Rogan, I guess, right? But anyway, you know, procrastinating. Like procrastination is the worst. It robs so many people of potential, man, because I know even for myself, there's times where I have so many projects and sometimes things get overwhelming. But it's like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. If you start looking at things in totality, you are going to do nothing but procrastinate because you're like, I'm never going to get this done, right? But if you start being absolutely honest with yourself and being honest with the man in the mirror, I think one of the things that you'll actually be grateful for is, you know, understanding that, you know, this can actually work in my favor, but I cannot look at things in totality. I need to look at things like just no different than building a building, you know, masonry work, brick by brick. You know, if you start looking at the whole mansion, you're going to be like, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're like, dude, this isn't going to get done. Or even for my sake, for example, you know, running a marathon. If I look at a marathon and I'm looking at 26.2 right away, then I'm like, dude, like, I'm not going to do this. But, you know, I don't look at things that way. I look at it, hey, 1 mile at a time, one step at a time. So I think that's one of those things that people really need to lock in on, you know. And, you know, last but very, you know, absolutely not least, right, is self-pity. You know, people accepting being a victim of circumstance. You know, it's like, oh, well, I was born a minority. You know, I was born. You know, I was born poor. I was born in the hood. I was born in public housing in the projects, and you know, and man, you know, these folks, the man can't get his foot off my neck, and all this other stuff, man. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like I understand what you're saying. I feel your pain. There's many people. I mean, we can't be oblivious to the fact that there's a lot of people that walk into this world already in the negative. All right, we already know that. But the thing is, they say all the time, you know, being born poor is by chance. Deciding to die poor is by choice. So we don't necessarily mean this in, you know, monetarily. However, I mean, it could be implied as well. But you know, because there's nothing worse than a wealthy, ignorant fool. You know, he's still not happy, still not fulfilled, wondering why the void hasn't been filled. You know, there's a lot of unhappy millionaires and billionaires, believe it or not, because they don't have their their morals and their souls intact. You know what I mean? So, and on top of that, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Rockefeller who ended up dying I'm not gonna say dying a horrible death, but you know, he pretty much, I mean, deteriorated at a rapid pace, being the fact that everything was about the money, the money, the money, and it's like if he could go back to it, he'd be like, well, I would choose quality of life as opposed to always being so, you know, money driven. And a lot of times people want to make the money so much and they forget why they're making the money and why they're doing what they're supposed to do. So, you know, if money is the motive, you're definitely, you know, you're going to be asked out. You're not going to be successful at what you're doing. At the end of the day, you have to be very mission and purpose driven. What, like I said, what's your mission? If you don't have a family, what's your personal mission? Who are you? What do you represent? What's your purpose? And what makes you wake up in the beginning of the day and say, I'm going to get after it because, there's a cause that's bigger than you. So that's something that you definitely want to make sure that you always keep in mind. Don't let your emotions define you, and respond accordingly. I talked about this on the last episode about, things that I would teach my son. You definitely don't want to be emotional. You want to make sure that you're not reacting, but you're responding. There's definitely a difference. Like I said, there's a difference between easy and simple. It's the same thing with reaction and responding. So, I'm very keen on trying to make sure that I'm being proactive as well as opposed to reactive. I don't like to do things after the fact, because if you see warning signs, then let's take heed to those signs, as opposed to saying, oh man, well, I know, man, this was like this for a while. I knew this was going to kind of happen, but then it happened. And it's like, what did you expect? It was the inevitable. So why don't we make sure that we take care of things firsthand as opposed to waiting for something to falter? Anyway, that's a whole different subject in its own, but it still applies for this this war that you're having with the man in the mirror, right? Face yourself in the mirror today. I implore everybody to get this done. If you're not happy with your body, work out. Period. Tired of the vaping and the alcohol? Replace it with a better habit. Hell, anytime you get an urge, think about working out. Think about knocking out a few push-ups. I'll tell you like this, man. If you thought about, you wanted to vape and you knocked out about 15 push-ups every time you thought about it, I guarantee you your arms would be so tired you probably wouldn't even want to go vape, because you can't lift your arms. So then that way you can go ahead and smoke that little vape pen or whatever the hell it is. I don't know what the hell that is. Whatever, right? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of that crap. So I don't know. Like I said, that's a vice that you have to try to do the best that you can to conquer yourself. Now, mind you, like, I am not perfect whatsoever. So I'm not coming off here to try to act like I am. I've dealt with my own issues in the past, but like I said, I understood there was a problem. I had to address it. Therefore, I did. And that's why I implore everybody to do as well. Make sure we're doing that, right? And if you're tired of doom scrolling, read a damn book. You can get off of the device anyway, give your eyes a rest, get into a nice corner at the crib, you know what I'm saying? And pick up a good book and read. Do something on self-help. Or if you like to escape and you like to read about Hogwarts and all that, and you like Harry Potter, like, feel free to read it. You know what I mean? Whatever gets your mind off of the BS that you're looking at on your screen, and God knows what you're looking at, you know what I mean? But if you're able to entertain yourself in some other way, and it's actually being productive and constructive as opposed to destructive and kind of putting you into depression, then I recommend you do that, because there's many people who doom scroll and everything, especially if they're scrolling on their friends or family's feeds, that these folks are giving you the highlight of who they are, and they're not showing you the real issues that they're having at home. You're going to fall into depression, be like, man, their life is so perfect, and I wish I wish I could be living like them. Look, we all go through our issues. We all go through our fights, our arguments, we go through our own personal hells. Like I always say all the time, just like Jesus did for us, everybody has a cross to carry. So everybody's carrying their own cross, and be respectful of that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, understand that you are not the only one that's going through issues. We all are. Just some handle it better than others because some are willing to take it on, as opposed to letting it, this little monster, becomes something huge. So you got to kill that right away. You know what I mean? But I got a couple of questions, man. Are you undisciplined? And are you mission driven? And if the answer is no, good. You're in the right place. It is time to get to work. So let's make sure that we don't play with our time. One of my biggest pet peeves is the mismanagement of time. Whenever I go somewhere, it's intention. I intended to go there. I don't like to drive around. I don't like to just wander and go on the big traverse. And no, I love to know where I'm going. If I'm going shopping, you better believe that I have a list. I'm not wandering around and going through every aisle, spending 2.5, 3 hours at Walmart. No, I'm not doing that. I'm very efficient when I move. For many of you that may not know, I was hospitalized back in 2007. This is when I became type 1 diabetic. I almost died. And, that was a wake-up call for me that let me know that time is finite and we don't have time to waste. So there's no need to lollygag with our time. So we have to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can, understanding that, enjoy your time, but live purposeful and don't squander it away. Because for those that say, oh man, I wish I had the time that he has, or I wish I could do what she's doing, it's like you can, you're just doom scrolling, you're Netflix and chilling too much, and you're letting all your time go away. So, take that information with what you will. But anyway, that's going to be my episode for this week, man. So feel free to conquer that mother lover in the mirror. I mean, I'm telling you, like at the end of the day, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then you're just going to be in a world of hurt, buddy. Look, take it from a guy who gets up at 4:30 in the morning every day to work out. Dude, I'm tired. I'd rather be in bed with my wife, chilling, but I'm not, because I know the workout got to get done. It's a peaceful time in the morning where I know I'm not going to get interrupted. So 4:30 is the time. I get up, I get after it. That's no lie. It is what it is. I don't have to do this get ready with me little reel that people do and all this other stuff, because I'm going to keep it real with you. It's an ugly process. I'm tired as hell in the morning. I'd be sweating like hell. I feel all cruddy in my eyes, trying to wash my face and get myself going. But you do what needs to get done. And one thing that I look at when I get ready to start going with this workout, when I'm brushing my teeth and I'm just getting myself ready to get this workout done, I said, damn, it's early in the morning. Guess what? I don't like what I'm seeing right now. It's time to get after it. So my recommendation, people, is for you to do the same. Anyway, that is all my time for this week. But look, you guys take care. Godspeed. And remember, man, feel free to hit me up on my socials, man. I don't mind conversing. If you guys don't like me, I don't mind you guys telling me you don't like me. That's okay. I'm not for everybody, and I'm fine with that. But y'all take care. Godspeed, man. Y'all have a blessed day. This is Rolo Runs the City. Be the goat, never sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.